is Miles? Like, what are we talking about right now?
And this is what I need y'all to do for me. I need y'all to go in her comments and be like Tati. Make an actual jingle.
Yeah, on your Zoom. What's the Tater Tots? It's your girl Tati back at you with another video. In this video, we have a special guest again, guys. Finally, we are back with another book swap. And this time we are talking about this book right here. I got to pick. It's called The Itch. So come on, we about to get right into it. Oh, I love this cover.
We're gonna get into this book. If you want to read this book and don't want to be spoiled, click off here. Thanks for tuning into this point. And if you agree or disagree with what we have to say after you come back and watch the video, feel free. All right. So, Tati, what made you choose this book? Because it was your month to choose. What made you choose this book? What
So
made you get it?
I chose this book because I read a book by her before. So this is not my first book by her. I have a book by her called Good Hair. I read that book first, and I really liked the book. I really liked the story and how everything played out. So I was like, okay, baby girl got some more books. Let me see. And then me and Ronald ended up talking about this cover anyways, because I love her covers. But I think in the new one, Sister Girl is missing a chair. So that's what made this one point out
Yes.
anyway. Because it's another one. This one is like The Secret or something like that. So it was two that I could have picked, but this one was the one because we had already had that connection of like, now why they changed this beautiful cover and you make it, y'all know how they be making stuff minimalistic now. They made it very minimalistic, which is like it's cute, but it don't compare. Okay. So I had high hopes for this book, just given that I read her book before. You can see on the back too, it says praise for good hair. So you see all the accolades she got for good hair. It was a good book.
What'd you rate it?
I didn't think about what I rated it till now. I'm in between a 3.5 and a 4.
So a 3.75.
Something like that, which I'm surprised by that score. But I think given y'all know we be reading books, and this is just to like put things into perspective because I think this matters. When you come off of reading different types of books and then you read this, it's like that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also read Good Hair. So I think my expectations in reading Good Hair and how that was built, the format of this was like a little bit harder for me to wrap my head around. I think that was my major thing because I'm like, baby, I ain't come here for 17 different million people. I came here for the two best friends, okay?
Wait a minute. What you mean 17 million different people? Because I'm reading this, I'm like, we only got 4 or 5.
The perspectives were just their perspectives were just coming. And I don't know if you want to get into it now or when we start
Hold
reading.
on, let me
But
let me get to my rating first.
let me get this right. Okay.
I gave this book a 4.
Four.
So we had like 5 different protagonists, but we start with Abra.
Mhm.
I like I like her actual name better than Abra. Abra is a nickname because that's what her best friend Natasha called her. But her actual name is Arabella. I like that better. She was a latchkey kid,
Mm-hmm.
and she was raised by her mom because her dad was not there.
Mm. I mean, when you find out, it's like,
You know what? Let's just stop playing. I'm gonna just be honest. This book got a 4 for the second half.
okay, so the first half of the book, I'm gonna be honest. The first half of the book, she starts off in I like to reference other things just to let y'all know. So starting off, she gave me Bernie vibes of like, y'all know that girl, and I'm saying Bernie from Waiting to Exhale if y'all don't know, but y'all know that woman, that married woman who's like, oh, my life is wonderful. Everything is good. I'm glad
Yeah.
me and my husband love each other. This homegirl be doing this and that, but us like this. So you knew something was gonna be up. You knew something was gonna be up just from that, but it wasn't like how I thought it was gonna be up. We go from Abra to her best friend Natasha. So that's what I'm thinking this story is gonna be about. Because even on the like when you read it, it's talking about those two. We talk about Natasha, who owns a company. She owns a company, and they have been doing really good. I don't like the name, but none of my business. It's fine. Um, and Natasha is like supposed to be the opposite of her when they're really not really that opposite. But I think we get more into Natasha's background before we even get into Aubrey's background, really like depth. I think we get more into depth and like the feelings and all that type of stuff, which I think also speaks to their characters though, because I do feel like too, when you are like a latchkey baby and you do have a certain experience, I feel like you are more guarded. And I think that's another reason probably why the book got better, because you go with Natasha, it kind of like she outwardly seems superficial, but you get more like in-depth story about her, like it's more in-depth, versus with Abra, while we're beginning this story, it's very superficial, very surface level. Like it's very like me and my husband cute, we love each other, I love him, this is perfect. Natasha is like, listen, I'm trying to get this done. The only gripe that they really have in their relationship at this point, because they even love, according to her, like she loves the normalcy of like the regular everyday marriage life. It's really that they haven't been able to have a kid. That's her most like, that's their biggest thing. So Natasha is she was lived in New Jersey with them, right? Natasha lived in New Jersey with Abra, and that's how they met. But her dad ends up moving back to Chicago to his hometown and ends up taking over their grandfather's business on ribs and blows up. Okay. And so Natasha is now, she was well off. They was not poor by any means necessarily in New York. But when they went to, and I'm saying New York the state, I know New Jersey and New York are the same thing, but nothing compared to what he created in Chicago. So when they meet back up and they get to know each other again, it's like it's a lot for Abra to absorb, and that's how she meets her husband Colin. That's how she meets. Is it Colin or Collins? I've been calling him Colin. It's Colin, right?
I call him Cullen.
Colin. Oh, you right. It is Cullen. It is Cullen. Because you. But Cullen is um Cullen is her husband. He knows Abra. They were like this. And that's how they got together. And their whole thing is like this safe kind of love. Like, I'm not the prettiest, but I can kind of warm up on you. I think for both of them, although everybody sees them as madly in love, and although I feel like they felt like they were madly in love, like that's like they you can tell that it really feels like kind of settling. It's like, I can't get this, so I'm gonna get this, or I think I should have this, so I'm gonna get this. And that was really like, and yeah, so we go from that to Natasha and setting up that, and they have this movie out. They have this movie out where they're not a movie out yet, but they're trying to produce this movie, and they can't get it sold yet because they're in TV and they've had a hit in TV and television production, but they're trying to get a hit in movie production. And so when Natasha comes to New York, just setting y'all up because they're like in their respective places. But when Natasha comes to New York, that's what their plan is to do. And that's where this story really like takes off. And that's where we hit, I think, from like, okay, the setup of like, oh, where they're from and their cute little, nice little lives to stuff really starting to kind of unfold, but we're still in the beginning of it. That's where I think we go to another perspective. And at that point, I had got annoyed. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So like she said, the story's about Abra and Natasha. They're best friends, but it's also about Abra's husband Colin. The other perspective Tati talking about is Miles, who is somebody else. And then it was like one more perspective in there, but it was important, but it wasn't like present day. It was like past tense perspective to like give background. And that was Abra's parents. So yeah, we had a lot of perspectives going on. And like I said, the second half of this book is what got the book before, because the first half I was irritated because that book, the first half is like strictly romance.
It's not.
It's strictly romance, and it's like it's romance, but it's like
Is it romance?
It's like we got one person building up and another person like falling apart, and I just don't care about relationships like that when it comes to story. I want to know who the people are. But it's like the first half was just my marriage, my marriage, my marriage, my marriage. Natasha need a man, Natasha need a man, Natasha need a man. I'm more interested in what's going on in the background. I want to know about the film y'all trying to make. I'm more interested in Colin making partner. I'm more interested in whatever Miles got going on. I was not all that interested in y'all relationships like that. And the fact that that was the first half of the book was just, yeah. But once we hit that second half, that's when we got more into what I was more interested in. So that's why I got the four.
I think that part is um I think we gave it the score for the different reasons, but the same reasons. But I do think that part speaks to what this book is low key about, with them not really like, they don't really even know who they are, honestly. Like, especially Abra. Abra don't know nothing, don't know about nothing, who she is, what she like. I remember this one, I was watching a YouTube video. This girl was like, her boyfriend had been together for 10 years. Hilarious, just like Arbor. And they broke up, and she was like, I started realizing I would do stuff, and I'm like, I was doing stuff I thought I liked, when if I found out I didn't really like this stuff. I was just doing it because somebody I was with or people that I liked it. And I feel like that's what we kept seeing in the beginning with Arbor. And even with I feel like when we it wouldn't I felt like how you felt with like what is it called? No, when she would start the chapter in the middle of the page, I'm not thinking of the right thing, but it started frustrating me because we would be in the middle of a scene and the perspective would change. Like we would be in the middle of something and there would be another perspective, and there's no announcement. So there's no, like, luckily you could pick up, who's thinking about what. Yes, I'm glad for that. But it's like, bro, like who, like they were talking about as they were literally meeting Miles. Next thing you know, we get Miles' perspective. Who cares about Miles, bro? Who is Miles? Like, what are we talking about right now? And then Cullen is like,
that was me.
Cullen
That
is
was me.
this girl he liked. And I'm like, bro, we don't care about you humping the interns and you never had an unfair turnout. Like, why do you matter? And I think how you said, I was really like, this was kind of set up, and at least, and I think maybe this was kind of set up to me and how I was reading it, because Miles is not mentioned. Cullen is not mentioned in none of this. It's like, okay, I'm thinking I'm gonna learn about these homegirls. Like, of course, it's gonna be romance. I'm gonna learn about these homegirls and stuff like that. No, we was getting these guys' perspectives, and I did not care. I did not care. I'm not gonna lie. It's especially because it's like in the middle. Like, imagine in the middle of somebody talking, somebody else start talking, and you like, bro, I need to see. It's an interesting style of writing, and eventually it glues together. But in the beginning, for me, that was annoying. At the very beginning, I was annoyed. I was over it, especially because I just felt like Cullen is so ungrateful. Oh, is that even next? Let's talk about Miles. Which one you want to set up first? Miles and what you call it, or Cullen in his situation?
Let's just go in order, because I got the whole story in my notes.
So yes, go ahead. Let's go in order, because y'all.
So Abra is married to this man named Cullen. Of course, Tati already told y'all they met through Natasha, because Cullen and Natasha, they went to Howard. They went to the HBCU. Of course, we both know which HBCU is really the best.
Come on.
Natasha and Abra, they're filmmakers. Cullen, I think he's a lawyer, and he's trying to make partner. And so like, and they're all part of like the upper class of Black people.
Like
So
Cullen.
Abra, she says that she's happy with Cullen. Yeah, she says that she's happy with him. They've been married for 5 years, but they've been together for 10. And she says that she's happy, but it's very clear that she's just saying that because, like, oh well, at least he's not like some of the other husbands in our friend group where they're not even happy. At least me and him have somewhat of a good life. They're together, and he don't really respect her work as a filmmaker. He thinks that she could be doing something else. Like, he treats it more like a hobby of hers than as an actual career. So he's like, well, I mean, I don't mind y'all making it, but it's not really a job like his job is. That's how he sees it.
I was gonna say, not just for creative reasons, but also I think it gives him ease, partly because so Arbor she has her MBA, okay? She has her MBA, and she actually worked at one of the top 5 companies in the US at the time. But when her and Cullen decided they wanted to have kids, she stopped working because the stress. They didn't know why she wasn't able to have a kid, and they said maybe the stress was a reason, so she stopped working. So that's another part of like he doesn't take it seriously, but it's like it bothers her that he doesn't take it seriously, but at the same time, it's not creating too much strain because since he doesn't take it seriously, it's like okay, she's not overworking or working too hard or anything. That's how he sees it.
Yeah. And so like Tati said, they have a good marriage. And Abra keeps saying, I've structured the marriage so good. I've structured it so good. Like, and I was like, oh Lord, is this gonna be one of them stories where the marriage fall apart? So then we get into Natasha's perspective. Natasha has had several boyfriends, but none of them have made it to long-term relationship. And so she's kind of just giving up on love. And I'm gonna be honest, I like Natasha. I liked I liked Abra, but I like Natasha more.
1,000%. I think that Abra was more jaded, and I feel like Natasha, how you say, is more realistic and just more free. I feel like Abra was sticking to this. I have my like that sense of security of I have this perfect life. I have this perfect life now. I have this perfect life. Versus Natasha is like, so
She's like, I got everything I need, but I just don't got a man, and I don't really want one.
mm-hmm. And it wasn't, that's another thing you might be sensing too. It wasn't her whole life. Like she wasn't like, oh, like Abra gives the vibes of if I don't have a man, it's like the end of the world versus Natasha is like, oh, it's sad. I ain't gonna lie, it's sad. But I ain't settling. It's but I'm not about to be settling, which I can respect.
So Abra decides to I don't know who Natasha takes Abra to this party that's being thrown by this rapper. That's being thrown by this rapper who got a lot of money. Natasha taking her there to have fun. Abra is like, this is an opportunity. So she gets the rapper to the side. She like, look, we trying to make this movie. We need some funding. If you interested, here's my card. And the rapper guy, he's like, oh yeah, sure. Let me see what I can do. Right. If he likes it. If he likes it. And then this is where we get into the issue of what Tati was talking about, where we be in the middle of something and then we just switch perspectives. Because you would think we would find out what the rapper thinks about the movie, right? No, we jump into the perspective of Abra's parents and they whole backstory. So Abra's mom, her name is Odessa. She is a college dropout, and she basically went north to New York to make her dreams come true. She wanted to be, I think, a designer. Yeah, she wanted to be a designer, but she couldn't get hired nowhere because she was black, number one, and it was like what was it, like the 1960s? Yeah, because she was black and she ain't had no connections, so she couldn't get hired nowhere. But these two white ladies, they decide to give her a job. It's not very good pay, and they take advantage of her being so desperate of needing a job. But like the story frames it as they make up for it by being so caring towards her and Abra. And I'm glad they was willing to offer some assistance, but how caring were they really if they weren't willing to pay her what she needed to be paid?
I think for me, it's two parts of sad. One, that could have been to current day. I said, who's Odessa and who's the city girl moves? I'm thinking she gonna be a big player because we just get to her perspective. I'm like, who is this? And the fact that like literally that could happen today. The idea of a country girl moving to a big city still relevant. The idea of white people picking black people specifically to work for them because it's gonna be cheaper, still relevant today. But I was like, baby, that's why you see why by the time I got to Cullen's perspective, I was over it because I didn't come here for them. What I want to say to that too is adding to that, is I was thinking at this point, just to give y'all where my mind is at, because I know the marriage. Excuse me, I know the marriage
Girl,
is not. The marriage is
you cannot say that.
I know the marriage is not on good terms, right? So at this point, I'm having my theory. So I'm like, she about to get with this rapper dude. So imagine me trying to figure out what's getting on. I'm like, is she gonna get with this rapper dude? Is she gonna get with somebody at the party? I'm trying to figure out what's going on because I know the marriage is nothing. So I'm like, Arbor is about to cheat. Wow. Because I thought she was gonna be like, oh, I thought my marriage was so great, but I'm in love with this other, I'm thinking it's gonna give that or something. So imagine my surprise when I hear Odessa is a city girl is a country girl moved to the city. I am where where are we? Where are we right now? And what are we doing right now?
So yeah, Odessa is Abra's mother, and this is the story of how she and Abra's father got together. So basically, Odessa, she working at the dressmaker shop, and Rayford, who is Abra's father, he was a post office guy. So the delivery guy, working the job with good benefits. So he come in, right? And he and Odessa, they start they start checking each other out, stuff like that, but they not really trying to act on it. So then Odessa's employers, they like, he is cute. You need to try and get with him. And they start trying to create opportunities for them to talk and get together. So then eventually Rayford, he asks Odessa out, right? They go out. They're getting to know each other, and Odessa is one of our favorite type of girls, one of our I'm waiting till marriage type of girls.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, every girl that has said I'm waiting till marriage has lost every time.
She made it a year, y'all. She made it a year. She said, you know what? I'm gonna give him a little something before we get married. And the next day,
but she still lost.
No, because this is the grimy part. The next day, he want to come crying, talking about some, I'm married to this or that. Y'all, kid you not even 24 hours later, not even 24 hours later, after she's like, I'm gonna give him a little taste, we getting married. 24 hours later, I can't marry you. I know you're wondering why. Because I'm already married. Crying and boohooing. What you boohooing for?
You knew you was married when you.
Are you crying? You for over this whole year.
And let's remember. Let's remember. He pursued her.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so basically they can't get married because he's already married. He chooses to stay with his wife, but he kind of like in and out with Odessa, like, and he kind of like in and out early on in Abra's life until eventually he just stopped showing up. So Odessa ends up raising Abra on her own. And no, the grimy part is he became a lawyer and he got all this money. So he quit his job at the post office, became a lawyer, got all this money, and he was trying to like send him money, acting like he's still in Abra's life. But Odessa was like, no, if you're not gonna be around, I don't need you. So he got all this money. He living nice, living well with his wife. Odessa and Abra, they're living in the hood. So then Abra and Natasha, they decide to go have a nice little girls' day out. They get makeovers, they get some new clothes, all type of stuff. And while they doing that, they get to talking about men. And Abra, of course, she's all, my marriage is perfect, my marriage is this, my marriage is that. And Natasha, like, I'm probably gonna be single for life. I'm probably gonna be single for life. I've just given up on finding a man. And so while they doing this, Cullen, Abra's husband, is in a hotel with another girl named Cynthia. And they do what they do at the hotel, and then Cullen he just leave. I think when we got to Cullen, that's when I got annoyed too. But not because of the perspectives, but because it was like, okay, why did we have to go this route? Why did we knew the marriage was gonna fall apart, but why did it have to be through a cheating storyline? Why couldn't it just be them realizing they're not compatible?
My issue was the perspective, and my issue was also Cullen trying to convince us that he's a good person. that's really like, oh, like him really trying to convince us that he's a good person. This is just this is just that. Like really, really, really trying to steal deep in his heart. I'm a great person. I'm a great. We go through a good 3%, good 15-20% of this book, even longer, of him. His chapters are really him trying to justify him cheating and justifying that he's still a good person. Y'all, we be getting to social stuff. This is what we saying when we be like, we gonna break it down, because we gonna break it down. it speaks to this thing of like how they say when men get sick, the woman usually stays, but when women get sick, the man usually leaves them because X, Y, and Z is not happening. And even though she didn't necessarily get sick, I felt that in this moment of like, you want to have kids, she want to have kids, all this stuff, like, but you're not attracted because she's gaining weight or because she's not exciting, because she's not doing this. She's gaining weight because of the medicine that she's on, guys. That's number one, the medicine that she's on. And then she's not working because y'all decided for her not to have a serious job, right? So what are you really, and then it's like the excitement, like, oh, you want this excitement, but isn't that why you married her? Like, you married her for safe. And I just felt like that really bothered me. Him cheating on her, I just knew, and I'm so glad that she didn't. I just knew Cynthia was gonna get pregnant, and I was gonna have to fight him because why would you do that as y'all are trying to? And it's a point in the story where that comes up of like we're trying to have a baby and you won't even touch me. Like, where are we going with this? And this idea of like being a good person. Like, I really wish that some of what happened in this story with them will align with something that somebody else in this story did together. That's what I wish would have happened. But we can keep going.
So Colin, he's sleeping with Cynthia. Then he gets home. And Aubrey's happy to see him, but she happy to see him. She like, hey, honey, how was your day? And he not really trying to talk to her. And she notices that he don't really mention her makeover. And she's trying to act all unbothered about it, but she's bothered. And Natasha, she suspects something is off with Colin, but she doesn't know what. So she just like, it is what it is, whatever. And so Colin, he is becoming obsessed with his affair with Cynthia because Cynthia is a much younger model. I think she's supposed to look like Naomi Campbell. I think that's what they was going for. But so he's getting obsessed with his affair, but he's trying to make partner at his firm. So he's like, I got to maintain a clean family image. So in order to make this partnership, I got to drop Cynthia. So I got to stop obsessing about this affair. Does he do that? No, no, he does not. In fact, he gets worse. So Natasha and Abra, they are going to meet with some indie film execs to see if they can get funding for this film. And on the way, they see this cute guy in a nice car next to them. So Abra's like, oh, he's cute. Natasha, she like, yeah, okay, whatever. So they pull over like at a light and he starts asking them for directions. And so Natasha's like, oh, we going that way. We'll show you how to get there. Just follow us. So he follows them there. And then when they get there, he gets out the car and he's like, he introduced himself. And him and Natasha, they like talking for a little bit, but they're not really doing too much. And then he thanks them and he goes on about his merry day. And Auburn's like, oh, he seemed nice. He seemed like he got a lot of money. And Natasha, she started picking up. She's like, no, that tie was cheap. That car is rented. Yeah, he nice, but he putting on airs. He not really who he said he is. But he is like he's a successful businessman in corporate America. So he do got money. He just dressed down. But Natasha, because she grew up with money, she could tell what he doing.
Mm-hmm.
And she also picks up on the fact that, and by the way, we talking about Miles. She also picks up on the fact that Miles kind of gives off like player vibes. So she's like, I'm not really interested in him like that because he seems like a player. But Aubrey's like, oh well, don't just write him off like that. Give him a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go into this indie film meeting, but they don't get no commitment. It's just like we'll see what we can do. And the rapper rejected the offer because he said black people don't act like this. So Aubrey, she calls Cullen to let her know that she made it to LA, but he's nowhere to be found because he probably was Cynthia. And Aubrey tells Natasha, we might have to pay for this film ourselves. And Natasha like, let's go for it. But Aubrey's like, okay, hold on, ma'am. I said we might. Let's look for some other options first.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm gonna be honest, them trying to make this movie was probably my favorite storyline and probably the most interesting one to me.
I I think as a communication major, I'm always here for it. I'm always here for the radio shows. I'm
Yes.
always here for the TV. I'm always here, especially because I feel like books, especially Black books, do such a good job at giving people the knowledge in the entertainment as well. So it's like, yeah, this is a fun book to read, but they low key putting you on to like what it's like to be in the business. They put some embellishment on it, like they put a little, make it a little cute, but a lot of times I feel like they like, um, who, what's that book called? Have you read it?
Especially what it's like to be Black in the business.
Yes, what it's
They
like
definitely do a good job of showcasing that.
to the point to where like because people always want to know why we get certain type of books and why we get or I mean certain type of movies or why the movie never matches the greatness of the books that we had at the time. And it's like they gonna tell in the and I love this about us. They gonna tell you in the books the same stuff that them directors be telling them. They gonna break it down. I think this book did a really good job of that.
So then we jump to Miles, and yeah, Miles is from Memphis, but he lives in New York. And it's like when we first meet Miles, it's like he's talking, I don't want to say talking regularly. He's like, here's how I can put it. When we're reading Miles' words, it is written in standard English. Then
Yes.
after we get the knowledge that Miles is from Memphis, all of a sudden he start talking in like the accent dialect that some Black authors use when they want to represent Southern dialects. And I'm like, why didn't you just do this from the beginning? Because like she just doing, oh, Memphis, Miles is from Memphis, and now all of a sudden he gonna talk like he from Memphis. I'm like, no, ma'am, don't do that. So yeah, he's lonely and he also giving up on love like Natasha. So he just be running through women like it's nothing. So his parents were not married, and he was raised by his mom. And his mom basically she worked to get him into this private school when he was in middle school, and he was there on scholarship. And so he took advantage of the opportunities, and that's how he got rich. And so he calls Natasha's office because she gave him her business card. So he calls the office to like set up a date between them, and Natasha not sure what to do. And Aubrey's like, give him a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decides to take her to dinner. They go to dinner, they make a good first impression. And then the girls they succeed at getting their sitcom into syndication. And Natasha, she starts telling Abra, oh, Miles is rich, he's this, he's that, seeming like she's starting to like him a little bit.
They set us up to think Miles was about to be terrible. Like he was about to take her. Like what Cullen had done, they set him up like, nah, what y'all about to get ain't nothing compared to what he about to do to Natasha. Because he came in when he broke down. This the 3 games that I run with women. I was like, you one of them. You're one of them. Okay.
So yeah, so Cullen. Cullen is reflecting on his love life with his friend Jimmy. Jimmy is this guy who like he's he's on his second marriage because his first marriage was too. So what Jimmy did was Jimmy was in love with this one girl, but he waited too long to marry her. So she got married to somebody else. So then he went and he settled for another woman, but he didn't really like that woman. So he divorced her and just kind of held out hope that the person he originally wanted to marry would one day come back to him. And we find out that Cullen proposed to Abra on a train ride.
Yeah, the least romantic way.
It wasn't no type of romance, no, not even in private. It's like they literally sitting there on their way. I think they was on their way to work, and Cullen like, you want to get married, and Abra's like, sure.
This is a business transaction.
So what happens is Jimmy is meeting with Cullen, and Cullen brings Cynthia because they're gonna go to the hotel afterwards. So that's when we get all of like Jimmy's background, and he ended up, I guess, sitting around waiting for the woman he wanted to come back. Worked because he got married to her
Yeah.
after, I guess, her husband died or something. I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah. So Cynthia shows up and they're celebrating her having a successful cover test. And so, like, a cover test from my understanding, is like it's like a test cover. Like they take your photo, see if it'll work on the cover. If it does, they'll put you on there. If it don't, oh well.
Mhm.
And so like they all sitting at this get together celebrating her cover test. And Cullen's trying to pass her off as just like an associate at his job, but Jimmy knows better. Jimmy's not stupid.
Despite what Cullen might think.
And they go up to the room and they do what
And at this point is when it gets bearable because he finally stops trying to convince us that he's a good person. He's not as hard on all of the I love my wife and it's my job and I'm really still good. It's just I haven't done this and da. Because he has so many freaking excuses.
then he goes and gets into the interesting part of his storyline. He goes and meets with Farrah the Furniture Queen, which is the account that he has to secure for his firm in order to make partner.
Mhm.
So he goes, meets with her. She's like, "Oh, I like you. You seem like such a good man, and I feel like we're gonna work well together." So then he goes home. Abra has got she's got the love suite set up. You know, she got the rose petals out. She got her nice lingerie on. You know, she ready for him. He get home, he don't want to do nothing,
Mhm.
and that hurts her feelings. And so then he apologizes, and they do what they do, and Abra's like, "Nope, something's wrong." And this is why I like Abra, because she didn't try to do that. Something's wrong, but I'm not gonna believe that something's wrong. She was like, "Nope, something's wrong. I think this man
Mhm.
cheating on me," and she stuck to it. And so then Cullen, he goes and meets with Jimmy again, and he's like, this is when he tries to pass Cynthia off as a coworker, and Jimmy, of course, is not stupid. So Abra, he tells Jimmy that he doesn't want to divorce Abra, but Cynthia is his itch that he has to scratch. And that's kind of where like the title comes in of the book. Like the itch is like it's like that thing that's a curiosity and you gotta scratch it. So each of the characters, they have an itch that they need to scratch. And so Cynthia, she also wants Cullen to herself, but she is deciding to wait it out and be patient. And so then Cullen and Cynthia, they do what they do, and it ends up going past like midnight. So he realizes it's late. He gets home. Aubra sitting up, waiting and crying. She like, "Where you been?" And he tries to play it off like he didn't do nothing, but Aubrey's like, "Look, Colin, if you're cheating, just tell me now, so that way we can work through this. Because if you're honest, I won't go nowhere. But if you lie to me, then I'm leaving." And Colin decides to lie.
So at this
You
point,
got anything you want to add?
Abra is like, I'm gonna act like everything's fine. And he really think he's like, this is the thing. He is like, Abra knows, like he feel the same way with his mom. He's like, she's gonna know if I'm lying. So he knows this. He still lies. He's like, I'm good. I'm good. She believed it. But Abra can't go to sleep because Abra said this man really lied to me. She knows that he's lying. And so at this point, she's trying to figure out what she's gonna do. And that's what I was trying to figure out too. I'm like, okay, homegirl, so you know he's lying, but you haven't let him know that you know he's lying. So what's the game plan? And then she didn't really get to get the game plan together because the game plan came to her.
So she goes and talks to one of her friends, Sherry, about unfulfilling marriages because Sherry is in an unfulfilling marriage with her husband David. They have a baby, and that's why they're together. Because they're just together because it's comfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
so Abra, she says Sherry is a friend, but Sherry is not like a Natasha level friend. Like Sherry's like somebody she just get together, we have a good time, we leave. I
Mm-hmm.
can't really tell her all my business like that. So then during this conversation, I got annoyed because yeah, they start because I got annoyed because they started making references to these other books that I love. So yeah. So on my in my notes I wrote page 105, Wuthering Heights is not a romance.
Okay.
Because Sherry said that because Sherry said that Abra is trying to live that Wuthering Heights life. And I'm like, it's very clear that this reference is based on the movie and not the book. Because
Isn't that
if
what
you've
they
read
say?
the book, you would know that Aubrey's life is no, she said she's trying to live that Wuthering Heights life because Wuthering Heights, the movie, is set up like it's a romance.
No, I'm yeah.
But the book is not a romance. The book is pretty much a horror. The book is like a horror story.
In the book though, she says somebody asks that.
But she's
Somebody's like, you didn't take English or you're not an English major or something like that.
yeah, she's trying to say, yeah, that's what Aubrey said, because she like, girl, you sure did not read these books. Because the other book she referenced, the other book she referenced was Jane. She referenced Jane Austen. I'm like, oh man.
So you Abra, but I
I'm like
think
Jane Austen slander. Oh my god.
yeah.
Because it's like she talking about Sherry, like, oh, you trying to live that Wuthering Heights life, like the movie. I'm like, no, Aubrey's life is reflecting the book. And so maybe it was intentional. Maybe it's like, maybe that's like a little Easter egg for people who read the book. It's like, if you read the book, then you know that Aubrey's life is very much reflecting the book and nothing like the movie. And then we had that whole Jane Austen slander on the next page where she's talking about some, oh, you trying to live a Jane Austen life. I'm like, Sherry, go read these books before you start trying to make references.
That's accurate either way.
So they get to talking and they, they get to talking and Abra, of course, she not telling Sherry her business, but Sherry sharing everything. She like, oh, the father of my child, he left me for another woman, and that's why I'm married to David now. And it's like it was just a lot going on. I'm like, Sherry, if Abra's not telling you her business, why are you telling her yours? And Natasha, she coming to New York to see Miles. And she asked Abra to do like a little recon on him, like, oh, can you just look into his background, see what he's like, see what he's about.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I like them. This is why I like Abra and Natasha, because they smart. Natasha, like, I'm interested in this man, but let me see what he's about first before I get too deep. Abra's like, my man is cheating on me. I know he's cheating on me. He lied in my face and he think I'm stupid.
Mm-hmm. Miles and his routine. Miles
Yeah,
and
he get into talking about his routines.
out of the routines, she's in a safe zone. Not a real safe zone because there's nowhere safe with somebody who got routines to run. You don't really have nowhere safe to be. But she's not in the third routine.
So he running this routine on her. And he talking about some he's glad he's avoided the meritocracy and oh those black people they just the face, but I'm in the real where the real money. He just gets talking all this smack to us about how he's made good financial decisions and the people they have on the billboard is like they just face they not really making no real money. And so Aubrey, she still don't got no game plan regarding Cullen. She like, I know he cheating, but I don't know what to do with him. And so she decides to go ahead and do her little recon on Miles. She calls this girl named Jackie, and she learns that he got money, he lives a good life, but he goes through women like it's nothing, and he's not the type to be marrying. So she is like, should I tell Natasha the truth, or should I like, what should I do? And she catches this phone conversation between Cullen and Farrah because this is the 90s where like you could pick up the phone and still listen to somebody else's conversation. So
Mm.
she thinks he talking to like his side chick. So she goes and confronts him because she's like, I know you're cheating, and he's like, no, I'm not. Maybe you just stressed, stuff like that. I'm like, she's giving you two opportunities to tell the truth.
Yes, and what I love about this conversation is that on the phone, originally she thinks that he's cheating, like it's the girl calling him. But as the phone conversation goes on, she realizes, oh, it's all business. Like, okay, cool. But like you said, she's not stupid, so she still goes in there, even though this phone conversation is all business. She still goes in there like, "Are you cheating?" Because you know how like I was scared about that of like, oh, she's gonna get this phone call and be like, oh my god, ooh, I thought he was cheating, girl. I'm just tripping. He over here working. It's just business. He actually is working. But she was like, no.
So after she gets done confronting him, she go downstairs and she start watching her a rom-com. And I love this part because she just watching it for fun. She like, I need to take my mind off of this. But then she start watching it for real. She's like, wait a minute, I can use this for inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So she starts studying it. She like, okay, this how they acting. This is the setup of the scene. This is the script. These are the lines. This the music. And I loved it because I'm like, why are you me? Why are you me? I was enjoying it. I was invested. And so when Colin came in and interrupted her, I got pissed off with her because I'm like, what are you doing? You gonna break the you gonna break the creativity. You gonna ruin it. Yeah. So he decided he gonna take what's her face, Cynthia, to North Carolina. And so then Natasha and Miles, they go out. And Natasha, she links up with a Hollywood producer who shows some interest in the film. So after she does that, Miles takes her to this fancy restaurant because he took her to that place so she could get her connections, and then they go to a fancy restaurant so they can actually eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get to talking and then they kiss. And Miles says he's not interested in like going into like a more physical relationship yet. And Natasha, she's wary of his confidence, but they are they getting to know each other. So they go spend the night at his house and they just sleep in the bed. And so then Cullen and Cynthia, they're in North Carolina. They're down there for 2 days so he can get this deal secure. And so he goes to work with Farrah, and he's the only black guy in the room, and he's the only young guy in the room. So he knows he got to make a good impression, and he fits himself in to make it work. Like he basically just kind of like succumbs himself to their ideas of who he is, so that he can secure the deal. And I'm not gonna lie, I was actually interested in seeing him secure this deal, but like he trying to work on securing this deal, and he can't focus because he too busy thinking about Cynthia. So then Farrah, she's like, "Oh, we should meet up later to talk." And he's like, "No, that's okay." So then he rushes back to the hotel to get to Cynthia, right? And he calls Abra to let her know that he made it there okay, and then he sleeps with Cynthia. And Abra goes to her OBGYN, and we find out that Cullen gave Abra
Mm-hmm.
chlamydia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now Abra is like, well, this just confirms what I already knew, which is that my husband was cheating on me. And she realizes her worst fear is coming true, that Cullen is gonna leave her because he's getting tired of her. So he gonna leave her and destroy everything they worked so hard for. That yeah. And so she's in denial, but she gets the pills because obviously you don't be walking around with chlamydia untreated. So she's like, I can't believe he did this, but I'm gonna get this treated anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And she says she's not angry, she's just empty.
And she just cannot believe it. She cannot believe it at all. And he just having his great little time. He's like, I'm gonna have like, and that's the thing too that I feel like people don't pay attention to, because when the first time he visited her and the first time they talked, they had a good conversation. Like him on his P's and Q's would have stayed and finished that. Him on his P's and Q's would have had dinner with her to secure that deal even more. That's what he would have did. And that's what speaks volumes to what's gonna happen later down the line. But like this whole scene shows, especially in comparison to the way we've seen him run business before, shows how distracted he's letting this situation get, to where is it even really a good thing? And this idea of like the thrill, I think a lot of people in this, like, that it's scratching that itch, but it's like also for them, a lot of them in this book want some type of thrill, and if it's not like a thrill or exciting, then it's not really life. And so he ends up going home. But I've noticed this in this story a lot. I don't know if this is something that just happened. I have never noticed this in 90s books, so I don't think it's a 90s books thing. I think it might be their class that they are in. But he flies in and he just heads straight. So instead of meeting up or them going to it together, he just flies and goes straight to a party because they had a party for another friend who made partner. So when he leaves this trip, he goes to the party. So he hasn't seen Abra since, the last time they saw each other. So he just pops up at the party expecting it to be normal, which is something I noticed throughout the book. And
And it's not normal. It's not normal. It's
Abra,
not normal because while he out here in North Carolina cheating up a storm, Abra is like, this man gave me chlamydia. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. She get home. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. She walk in that office. I'm not mad, but I just need to get this out my system real quick. She pick up his stuff. She start throwing it across the house, start breaking stuff. She's like, I'm not mad, but you know what? I need him to feel how I feel right now because I just feel very hurt that he would lie in my face, that he would give me this, and that he just would. So she decides to go downstairs to his wine cellar, to his prized collection of wine, and she start breaking stuff. Then after she break all that stuff, she goes to her mama's house. Her mama still lives in the hood because her mama refuses to let Abra move her out the hood.
Her mama just don't want help.
So like she get down there and Abra tells her everything that's going on. And Odessa's like, she in her mind, she wishes she could do something to make it easier for Abra because she like, I've been here, I've been through this before, but she can't do nothing. And she's annoyed with how dependent Abra was on Cullen. And she's like, all this stuff I did for you, all of these things I did to raise you right. Why are you going down the same path I went down? Now, granted, she's not saying this to Abra, she's saying all this in her mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, well, you did your best, but sometimes people just gotta learn for themselves.
Even in the book, it's she's saying how like, you know, she doesn't know what it's like to not have a father. Her dad was there. Her dad was very supportive. So she doesn't even understand the whole that's missing inside of Abra that she's trying to, you know, fill up in this process of like the reason why she's so dependent on him. She had a dad, so she doesn't have to look for X, Y, and Z. She's not looking for any of that. Versus Abra didn't, yeah, you raised her to be independent in spite of all that stuff, and that probably did help, but she's still craving that fatherly figure that she would like to have, especially when her best friend, when your dad was such a great dad, but also her best friend has this like dad that's like the best dad in the world.
So after all this happened, that's when Colin gets home and he goes to the party. Abra, she's sitting there like, I'm not gonna go off, I'm not gonna go off. She see Colin. She like, hi Colin, how you doing? Colin like, oh hi, I'm good. How are you? Abra's like, how am I? How am I? You wanna know how I'm doing, Colin? She start going off in the middle of that party. And everybody like, okay, it's time to go. And Abra like, no, y'all ain't gotta go. I'll see myself out. And so she leaves and Sherry go chasing after her like, come on, let's go get some coffee and let's talk. So Sherry and Abra, they talk. Then Abra go home. She talks to Colin the next day. And Cullen is just like, Cullen like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And he tells her he don't love her no more. And I'm like, wow, Cullen, wow. Okay.
Because he's like, what do you need from me? She's like, bro, just tell me that you love me. He was like, can't do it.
And that was the first half of the book.
And then
So then after we got done with that first half took me what, like 2, 3 days to read. We get into the second half. You know, I read the whole second half in one night.
yeah, because the second half is where it's at. The second half is where the facades
Yes.
drop. The second half is where the hard work begins on working on themselves. The second part is where they really start developing as characters and people. And it's like, I think the second half of this book eats, but I will say the second half of this book does so well too because of the setup in the first half of the book. Like she did a really good at explaining where the characters were until that point to get them to like, you see a lot of change. And this, I think out of every book that we've read so far, I think this book has the most change, development, growth, and like self-realization out of all the books that we've had. I think that this book has the most of that in it.
I don't know. Waiting to Exhale might give it a run for its money.
I kind of see it. But I think for this one, I don't know. It's how they handled it at the end. I just think it just was really. Yeah. We'll talk about the end when we get there. Let's
Let's
It
yeah,
starts.
let's go. So we get into the second half. This is where I started liking the book. So the Hollywood producer that Natasha talked to, Griffin, he is a big Hollywood producer. He decides he's going back to film. Now, when I was reading this, I thought Griffin was black. I thought he was black because they was like, why? Because they're like, oh, we're gonna get this black, we're gonna get this big producer to back this black film. So I'm thinking, oh, Griffin is a big black Hollywood producer, right? No, Griffin was white. And so Abra, after she and Colin separate, she moves to LA to support Natasha and the business. And she left most of her stuff in New York and she stopped doing fertility treatments because she like, you know what, my man is cheating on me. He gave me an STD and it's no point in trying to get pregnant by him because he don't do right. So Griffin, he's interested in the project and that generates buzz within the industry about the project. So they're able to sign on this famous actress to do the project. They're able to get all of this stuff, but they can't get the funding is not secure yet. Like Griffin is interested, but he's not secure to back it.
Mm-hmm.
So then they get to meet in with these different people to like direct the film. And so this one director come in and he is not the right person for this project at all. Like he want to change up everything. And so Cynthia, her modeling career has taken off. And she and Colin are together, but she's not as attentive to him as Abra was. He's like he's super sure he gonna get this partnership, but he's like, I need to keep Cynthia a secret, but Cynthia might not want what I want. And I'm like,
Conversation you should probably have before you tell somebody you love them and you're gonna leave your wife for them. But none of my business.
the whole second half of this book was really see when you do clownery with Cullen.
Yeah.
And he like Cullen is like he's gonna divorce Abra, he gonna be happy with Cynthia, and he keeps saying this thing. He keeps saying this thing. He's like all good things, all good things. And when he kept saying this, all I kept thinking was all good things must come to an end.
And
So then Miles and Natasha, they go to Hawaii. They go to Hawaii. They're attracted to each other. They finally decide they're gonna sleep together. Was Natasha one of them? I'm waiting till marriage.
no, she was not. She wasn't waiting until marriage. She just was no, she was just she didn't want to do it too fast.
So then they sleep together, and they admit that they like each other. You know all this. She wants him to meet her dad. He wants her to meet his mom because they just they feel like they at that step in the relationship.
Another big thing with her father, she was like, "Oh, my dad would love you," and he was like, "No, he would not." No, I'm sorry, baby girl, he would not.
So Abra, she decides she gonna go natural, and her mother hates it. And she's slowly moving on from Colin, and she starts attending like this therapy group that Natasha told her about.
Mm-hmm.
Because Natasha saw it on TV. She like, I saw this lady on TV. She gives therapy for stuff like this. You should go see her. I'm like, why are we going to a teletherapist? But okay. Because I'm thinking she gonna get up there. It's gonna be a scam. Like, I'm thinking it's gonna go one of two ways. But no, it seemed to be helpful to her. She gets to the root of her issues and she realizes that all of these issues stems from her not having a father. And because of her not having a father, it has led to her making bad choices with men. And so Opera gets out that meeting. She go to Natasha. She like, yeah, we talked. And I realized that a lot of my issues stem from not having a father. And I was jealous of you because you had such a great father in your life and I didn't have one at all. And Natasha like, I thought you hated my dad.
It's like, nah, baby girl. I was so good that she was willing to admit it because she already knew it. She's like, no, you just had a great daddy. Nobody want to see that. I don't want to sit there, go to your house every day and see how great your daddy is.
Miles' mom, her name is Erlene. She is preparing for Natasha and Miles to come. She's super excited to meet Natasha.
Another perspective.
So they get there and she's all happy to meet Natasha. She like, I'm gonna show her around. So she's showing her around. And so while they doing that, Abra goes to dinner with Griffin. And it's supposed to be a business dinner, but Griffin, he start, looking at Abra like more than business.
And they close on the film as well, don't they?
At this point, he's still interested, but he hasn't made a like definite I'm a back it yet. This is like we supposed to be talking to see what we can do. So then Cullen, all good things came to an end. He got to wait another year for partnership because his company is bringing in new people. So he not happy about that. Cynthia, she wants to open a restaurant and, she's very private about her life and she's seemingly ungrateful about what Colin has done for her. And Colin is like, he's realizing that he and Cynthia don't really have the chemistry like that he thought they did. And so Cynthia, she goes down there, once again, another perspective from Cynthia. She goes down there, she gets she see her father and her stepmother. Her mother left them when she was young, so she don't have no relationship with her mother. She like her stepmother is nice, but I don't have no emotional connection with her, and she don't have no emotional connection with her father either. So she go down there, everything's nice. She go back home, Cullen is a mess, and she like, you know what? I'm tired of you. So she decides that she is going to leave, and Cullen is like, no, don't leave, and she's like, I'm leaving. So she leaves, and Cullen realizes his whole life has fell apart. Like I told y'all last time, I don't believe in karma, but you can't make stupid decisions and then be upset when the results come from them stupid decisions. Abra has decided to let go of her dream of being a mom and is growing closer with Griffin professionally.
He's like a mentor to her, so he's teaching her.
Yeah, he kind of like mentoring her.
Yeah, he's teaching her the business. She's learning how to dress, how to act, how to
and
talk.
like the
And I think having that
kind of like mentoring her in the film aspect, like what it takes when you're like in film versus in television. Natasha calls and she updates Abra on what's going on. She tells her that she went to Cynthia's restaurant and Miles was checking Cynthia out, and so that kind of hurt her feelings a little bit. And so Abra, after getting this news, she decides to call Cullen just to check on him, and she just want to be nosy and see if he and Cynthia split up. And while she doing that, Miles and Natasha, they eating at Cynthia's restaurant, and they like each other, but Natasha is scared to commit to him. And Miles, of course, he wants her to tone down who she is to like fit into his world. And I'm like, yeah, this is seeming like we not gonna work.
For me at this point, it's like it's minor things that you think are little, but I think is big in the long run. But I think and I like how Natasha played it because she's like, I like you, how you say it, but it's like, we're gonna see where you want to take this. She not pressuring him or nothing. And with him, I feel like it was really nitpicky, to be honest. Like very, very nitpicky. I think it was more so underlying things. Well, I think it's two parts that can play with it. It could be, hey, it's nitpicky, but it's the truth, right? I'm not gonna settle just because this looks good on paper. But also, I think it was a fear there for him.
So Abra, she meets with Griffin again. She wants him to back the movie. He wants her. He decides to back the movie, but he wants to make some changes, like some minor changes. And Opera tells Natasha, hey, Griffin agreed to back the movie, but he want to make some minor changes. And Natasha like, okay, shoot, as long as he willing to fund the film, let's do it. And I was so pissed off that he ruined this movie.
Again, behind the scenes of what it's like to be a Black creative, though. They give you the game.
So what he did was he changed it to make it more racially diverse. And instead of letting Abra and Natasha, two Black women, tell the story of Black people, he decided to fall back on racial stereotypes to tell the story. And so Abra is like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I want to quit. And Natasha's like, no, even if it's not what we thought it was going to be, let's just do it anyways because it'll look good on our resumes. So they do the film. The film production is a hot mess. They go on the press tour. And so while they're in New York doing a press run, Abra walks around and she catches Miles with Cynthia at Cynthia's restaurant. Miles says it was an investment meeting, but Abra is like, yeah, okay. And so she brings it up to Natasha, and Natasha's like, what was you doing with him? She's like, what was you doing with Cynthia? Like, what was going on? And Miles, he just kind of weasels his way out of it.
And the funny thing is, she thought that Abra was gonna let it slide because Abra was like, oh yeah, I just saw we having dinner. He was like, oh. And she was like, yeah, guess who he was having dinner with? Guess who it was? Yeah, it was Cynthia. Me and my friends will have to have a strong talking to Cynthia if this was me and my friend group. Because you already went after my husband. Now you trying to go after my friend, man. Yeah. We're gonna have strong talking to you. Okay, ma'am.
And so like they go to the premiere And Abra hates the whole premiere. She's like, it's terrible. But Natasha, she is loving it. She is loving the attention. She is soaking it in. She's like, yes, I am that girl. After the premiere, they go to like the little party afterwards, and Griffin is there. And while he's there, we get his perspective. And he realizes that as he's watching, first of all, he realizes he does not fit in with the people there because everybody there is black and he is white. But he also, as he's sitting there realizing, he realizes that what he's seeing is what Abra and Natasha were trying to create in the movie, and he realizes that he messed it up. And you know what that speaks to? That speaks to what happens when you don't let black people tell the stories that they know they can tell to the people they're trying to tell it to. So the movie, it makes back its budget, but Abra is upset with Natasha because she feels like Natasha sold out to get the movie done. And she's like, she's just doing a lot. She's like, I'm gonna move back to New York. I'm becoming more comfortable with myself, and I'm considering pursuing a relationship with Griffin. While she doing that, Natasha, she and Miles, they have been dating for about 2 years at this point, and they both still scared to define their relationship. I'm like, y'all been together for 2 years and y'all still have not defined their relationship.
And
So
so
then Miles, he goes to see Cynthia, and Cynthia, she hates how he talks, but she's interested in him. But Miles is like, he's not interested in her. And he sees why Colin left her because he's like, she don't really got too much to offer.
I think that moment was
And
just
so then
to be like, oh, he didn't do nothing with her. I think that's what she was trying to do in that moment of like, something could have happened, but just to give us a little ease, because the men were not making good decisions in this book.
Miles is getting ready to turn 40. So Natasha decides she's gonna throw him a party. She invites his mama up there for the party. So then we get to this party. Aubree's there. She still wants to have a baby, and she's still seeing Griffin. And then she's sitting with Miles' friends, and Miles' friends, one of them has a baby, and so she gets to hold the baby, and she's like, I really want a baby, but it's just a lot going on. And everybody's talking about how Miles and Natasha, they seem like a nice couple, but they don't see them making it. And I'm like, oh Lord.
And all for the same reason. That's the crazy part. Everybody sees the exact same thing. And so we end up meeting the most important.
And so during the yeah.
We end up meeting some of the most important women in Miles' life. And that's during the party, I think that's what helped him the most in like feeling better about how he felt about Natasha, because everybody loved Natasha. So yeah, they didn't think they weren't gonna make it because of her. Everybody loved her. The best friend loved her. Like everybody approved. She was just great. Everybody loves Natasha.
Yeah, they love her. They just like, are you actually gonna be in a relationship this time? Or are you just playing with her like you did with everybody else? Miles, he gives this like this little thank you toast, and during the thank you toast, he doesn't thank Natasha, even though Natasha is the one who put the party together. And so Abra is like, nope, something's wrong. And that's really why I love Abra. Like she sees stuff for what it is.
And it wasn't that he didn't thank her. It was just everybody said he gave her the easy thank you. It was like, oh, thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting this together. My mama was all in tears. Thank you for making me this man. And it was like, because Abra's toast is like, not Abra, Natasha's toast like, you're a great man. Thank you for like, or like we've been together for almost 2 years and it's been wonderful, yada, yada, yada. And his was just like, oh, thank you for putting this together.
And so Miles, he takes his mom and Natasha home, and he's thinking about his life, and he decides he's gonna give marrying Natasha a shot. So he, he like gives her a little, he doesn't propose necessarily. He just says, what do you think about getting married? And she's like, are you serious? Okay. And so then they tell his mom, and she gets all excited, and they're like, oh, it's not set in stone. It's just we just considering it.
Well, he had got the ring.
And so Miles, this is when he starts wondering, yeah, he got the ring, but they don't have a date. So this is when he starts wondering if he made the right decision in proposing marriage. So of course, word of the engagement spreads fast. Natasha, she's planning on having this huge wedding. And all of the rumors about Natasha are negative. They're like, oh, they're all negative because of Miles' reputation. as a ladies' man. And Cullen hears about this from Jackie, and he realizes that he and Natasha are not on speaking terms because, of course, he cheated on Abra, and Natasha's friends with both of them, but she was friends with Abra first. So he realizes he lost Natasha and Abra. And I wrote in my notes that Benilde Little, she don't know what she want to do with Cullen. She don't know what she want to do with him. Because it's like we got all of this going on over here, and Cullen is just like over here not doing nothing. Like he just be like, "Oh, I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad," and then we go to somebody else, and I'm like, it works for the story and it works for showing how isolated from the community and from the group he is, but it's like he not doing nothing in this isolation. He just, I'm sad. Okay, next.
Because that's what happens in depression. He don't have like versus he not gonna be going to therapy because who gonna Natasha kind of sit what you call it to therapy or like the certain conversations we have. He does his whole I think that's what she wanted to do with him. His whole thing is the isolation. His whole thing is you wanted all of this stuff. You thought you was gonna get all this stuff. And look at you now. Because like it was points where when he was going through it though, he's like, I want to talk to such and such, but now what do I do? Which is so weird because at the first part of the book, he was probably the one that was the most secure out of everybody with himself and all that other type of stuff. I feel like, or like had the most stuff on track. And it's like this second half, we just lost all of who or what Colin was or could be. And I think it took him until this point to him talking to Jackie.
That's why I said it works.
To like really start getting some stuff together. Because I feel like once he met Jackie, things start like, not when he met her, but like I feel like around that time of when, you know, this part of the book, he's starting to like come to terms with everything. They're talking about it. So that's how he finds out he's like feeling some type of way. And then Abra and Natasha have the conversation when Abra comes back. I mean, when Natasha comes back, she shows Abra the ring. The ring is gorgeous. It's from Tiffany. It costs $1 bajillion. And she asks Natasha, like, have you told Cullen? And she's like, no. She's like, girl, you gotta tell him. Like, that's one of your closest friends. And everybody's a little taken aback by, I feel like, by just how Aubrey is handling this at all. Because, like, she's being, I guess, very mature about it, very, what we like to say, classy about it. Because she's like, girl, she's like, Natasha's like, are you sure? Are you okay? She's like, girl, that's your best friend. That's one of your best friends. You better go to, at least let him know. At least, you know, like, I don't really care.
I think well, it's not, I don't think. She didn't really love Colin like that in the first place. They were together for security, number one. Number two, they've been having on and off communication since the separation. So it's not like they stopped talking. They still talk. They still check in on each other. So they still have some type of relationship, not romantically, but at least like on a level where they still feel comfortable talking to each other. And then also, like I said earlier, Abra was friends with Natasha first. Natasha and Colin became friends in college. But Natasha always probably gonna go with Abra first because number one, not only was Abra the one done wrong, but that was her friend first. They're like, oh, Abra, why are you so invested in what's going on with him? And she's like, I mean, I've moved on, but that's still your friend. But while she's doing all that, she's wondering why her judgment of Miles was so off. And she's like, how is my judgment off? Because usually I'm spot on with stuff. And so Miles, he's reflecting on his decision to marry Natasha. We find out that he gave her her ring while she was in the bathroom brushing her teeth. And I'm like, what is with y'all giving these women their rings in the most unromantic way possible? Y'all could do something more than this. But he basically decided that he was going to marry Natasha because he didn't want to end up like his dad, alone, with no one to talk to, with no relationships, with nobody else, just alone, living off a pension somewhere with no connection to nobody else in the family. And so, yeah. So then Abra, she decides to tell Natasha, go tell Cullen. So Natasha, she calls Cullen. She tells him about the engagement. She's still pretty pissed off at him for what he did, but at least they talking.
Until he gets the audacity.
And he tells her that
the audacity. He gets the audacity to be like,
yeah, he tells her that.
oh Lord.
I'm just gonna say that he tells her that he's in a relationship with Jackie. but it's not serious.
But I was gonna say, well, he's like, oh, what is Abra doing? And she's dating somebody, and isn't that man married? Weren't you married when you cheated on her? Okay, let's mind our business. Let's mind our business on this one. Let's mind our business. And Natasha's like,
Yes.
that's my friend. Watch your mouth, because that's my friend.
So yeah. And so Abra, she's like my judgment on Miles was wrong, but I'm still gonna be careful around him just in case. And she realizes that she and Griffin are just too different and she does not want to repeat her mother's mistakes. So then we get to the final chapter. And I say this is the chapter where Miss Little decides she's gonna break everybody's little hearts. So Miles, he realizes that he is not wanting to marry Natasha. So and I say was the least trash of all the men because at least he realized he wasn't really trying to marry her like that. He realized he was just doing it because, like you said, it was just he felt like he was just doing it because he didn't want to be lonely, but he realizes he didn't really want to get married. He doesn't want to live a married lifestyle. So he tells Natasha, and yeah, they decide they're gonna end the engagement at the engagement party that her dad is throwing. But Natasha knew that
People,
something was off because she knew that the minute her dad met Miles, she knew the minute her dad met Miles, she was like, yeah, something's wrong because my dad is not responding positively to him. And so the book ends with Natasha and Miles not being engaged. Cullen and Abra, they don't have no feelings for each other, but Abra is proud of herself because she made great progress on herself and she's found herself. And that's how the book ends.
I think I like her book end because it just showed how much maturity everybody had and how much they were working on each other and how much they were determined to like. And that's why I think it was so much growth because they were like, well, you know what? We're not gonna make bad mistakes just because it sounds good. And even with Cullen and Abra in the writing, it was like, they just let it go. It wasn't like we gonna keep trying to flirt. Somebody still did have feelings. I ain't gonna say which one. Well, still wanted to keep the conversation going. Let me say that. But it was like we can be mature adults. We've grown, even in how everybody handled it. Like Colin is like, you know what? I don't necessarily regret leaving her, but I know it wasn't the right decision. He said this somewhere in the book. I don't even think it was at the end, but he was like, I know that leaving her was not the right decision, but it was necessary. So yes, it wasn't right. It wasn't probably good.
Mm-hmm.
How he left her probably wasn't good, but they needed to be apart. They needed to break up. And I think that's the same thing of like what was happening with Natasha, but and that's what I was saying earlier of like it being done the right way of like, we know we don't need to be together, but instead of cheating, instead of being crazy, doing all this hoop to hoop, he just, yeah, he told her late, but it's better late than never. As much as it doesn't seem like a happy ending, it is a happy ending. Like, as much as it seems like, oh my God, the engagement broke off, all this stuff, like everybody's on good terms. Ain't nobody like beefing. We avoided another what you call it? I was gonna call it abracadabra, but another Abra and Colin mishap. Like we avoided all of that. Colin and Abra on talking terms, they good. And we avoided them getting back together too. We avoided all that ugliness. We avoided Abra being with this white man. No offense, but we avoided her being with this married white man. Like we really we hit some points, and I think something that I really like about what she did is like it's not just breaking the facade. And you know what? She said this at the end too about I feel like why Aubrey was calling at the most peace is because she also said it too about her healing. Like Aubrey came, she scratched that itch and she healed. And I feel like I like that about this book because everything don't have to be about romance, but also every romance doesn't have to have a good ending. And everybody doesn't have to be so clean. Like life is not so black and white. And I feel like this book does a good job at showing that life is not so black and white. So while it could seem that like Cullen cheating and all of that type of stuff could be the end of the world and like they could never talk and make them so terrible, it's not always black and white like that.
Yeah, so I gave this book a 4 because the second half definitely picked up, definitely carried the first half. And like you said, the first half did a good job setting up. And the second half probably wouldn't have been as great if it wasn't for the first half doing its job. But also, I like how we got to experience what the characters went through with them. So like when we got done, it was like you could see the growth, you could see the change, and like you got to experience everything with them. So like Natasha and her wanting to be with Miles, but being scared to commit, we got to experience that with her. And so when it came time at the end, we get to feel her heartbreak when he leaves. But she's also like, okay, well, at least he told me. At least he ain't string me along. And we just get to experience it all with them. I like that.
Yeah, that was how we felt about this book, y'all. It's been a
Yeah.
while, but we glad to be back. If you guys want to see more of these, this is what Ronald. Y'all go ahead to Ronald's channel. He has Read with Ronald, and he does this on a consistent basis. So you might see us. You know, the collab is once a month, but every day, all day, we doing book talk over there at Read with Ronald. So go ahead, make sure y'all subscribe to him. Make sure y'all like this video, give this a thumbs up, comment, make sure y'all comment on his videos too. If you came from Ronald's channel, go ahead and comment real quick. And you know, y'all know, come on now, we know what we gotta do. The last thing we gotta do is what? Subscribe to my channel so you could grow with your girl and so you could grow with your girl and so you could grow with your girl. Break it down and break it down and